They say trust is the foundation of a marriage. But what no one tells you is that sometimes, it's the silence between two people that screams the loudest. 5 times. That's how many times my wife rejected Ethan Rivera's friend request. Not 4. Not 6. 5. I counted. I never asked her about it. She volunteered the information herself, laughing it off like it was a joke. God, Ethan's still so desperate. Keeps trying to add me, she'd say, shaking her head like it was cute. I rejected him again. Again. That word stuck in my chest like a nail. Because she didn't need to tell me every time. No, she wanted to. She wanted me to know she was being loyal, as if loyalty meant clicking a button. But I watched the way her thumb hovered. I saw the flicker in her eyes, like a spark buried beneath a decade of what-ifs. She didn't look repulsed. She looked curious. And curiosity, I've learned, is just the prelude to betrayal. We were sitting at breakfast when it finally clicked. A plain Tuesday morning. She was scrolling through her phone, lips curled up at something I couldn't see. The kind of smile you wear when you're not supposed to smile. The kind that makes your husband's stomach twist. What's funny? I asked casually. She blinked up like she'd forgotten I existed. Oh, just a meme. She turned her screen away too quickly. That was it. That was the moment. The moment I knew. She hadn't cheated yet. But she was going to. There's a strange clarity that comes when you realize the person you've built your life with has already left, emotionally, spiritually, long before their body does. Lana was still sitting across from me, buttering her toast, sipping her coffee like nothing had changed. But everything had. That morning, I told her I'd be working late. She kissed my cheek, soft and mechanical. The kiss of someone who loves the comfort of a man, not the man himself. And when she walked out the door, I didn't feel pain. Not anger either. Just readiness. Because love doesn't die with infidelity. It dies with silence. With small, deliberate omissions. With those little looks she didn't think I noticed. And if this was the story she was choosing to write, then I would be the one to finish it. You can learn everything about a person if you're willing to watch when they think no one's watching. I learned that truth as a kid, crouched behind my bedroom door, listening to my father lie to my mother about late-night meetings and overtime that never happened. I learned it again in college, when my roommate said he'd never touch my girlfriend, then did, 2 weeks later, while I was out of town. So I listen now. I watch. And I remember. It's how I've survived this long in a world where the truth is rarely spoken aloud. My wife, Lana, calls it paranoia. I call it self-preservation. When I met her, I wasn't thinking like this. She stormed into my life like a hurricane in heels, confident, brilliant, magnetic. I was a quiet copy editor working remote jobs from coffee shops and barely managing eye contact in public. She was sunshine and storms all at once. And I loved her for it. Lana made me feel alive. Wanted. Seen. But the thing about people like Lana is that they crave intensity. They thrive on momentum. And when the newness wears off, they look for the next hit of adrenaline. That hit, lately, was named Ethan Rivera. She'd mentioned him once, early in our relationship. Some high school romance that didn't survive college. Said he was young and stupid and into himself more than he was into her. I remembered the name, not out of jealousy, but because of how casually she said it. Like a line rehearsed too many times. Fast forward 7 years into our marriage, and there he was, popping up on her Facebook suggestions. Over and over. Like a shadow refusing to stay gone. At first, she rejected him. I saw it. One day, I casually looked over her shoulder and saw the familiar name. She made a show of clicking ignore and said something like, "Ugh, this guy again. Some people never grow up. Then she rolled her eyes and laughed. But her fingers paused just long enough. The pause told me everything. She wasn't annoyed. She was tempted. It happened again the next month. And the month after that. 5 times total. 5 requests. 5 rejections. All seen with my own eyes. But I also saw the way she began curling her hair before casual coffee runs. How she smiled at her phone a little too long before locking the screen. How she started guarding it like a secret. And that's the thing about Lana, she's not subtle. She thrives in attention. She craves validation like air. And lately, I haven't had enough. Maybe I never was. I won't lie and say I was perfect. Work had been rough the past year. My freelance clients dropped in waves after a corporate restructuring scandal at the agency I contracted for. Money got tight. My hours became long and erratic. I was always tired. And she was always waiting, for my time, my laughter, my attention that I didn't always have to give. We began missing each other in the same house. Still, I never thought she'd cheat. Not Lana. Because she always made a point of hating cheaters. She called them weak, pathetic. Her father had cheated on her mother, and she told me once, if you ever did that, Adrian, I'd leave before you could blink. So no, I never thought she'd cheat. Until I started listening again. She stopped asking how my work was going. She stopped making late-night tea for 2. She'd retreat to the bedroom with her phone and headphones, and I'd stay on the couch like a ghost pretending to be alive. I felt her drift. Piece by piece. Breath by breath. But instead of confronting her, I observed. I began journaling. Not emotions, data. Patterns. Timelines. Words she said, and more importantly, the ones she didn't. And then I looked up Ethan Rivera. High school sweetheart turned starving artist. Failed music dreams turned marketing junior executive. Newly single. I recently moved back to the city. Working for a boutique PR firm downtown. And yes, still playing in a band. Friday nights. Local dive bars. Every puzzle piece fits. He wasn't just a fantasy or a curiosity. He was real. Here. Available. And my wife was slowly preparing herself to jump. The crazy part? I wasn't even angry. Not in the way people expect. I wasn't smashing things or yelling or plotting revenge, not yet. What I felt was something colder. More precise. It was like watching someone inch toward the edge of a cliff with their eyes closed. I could yell. I could warn. But she wouldn't stop. Because she was curious, how the fall might feel. I decided then, I wouldn't stop her. I'd let her fall. And when she did, I'd make sure she knew exactly who was watching the whole time. Because love. Real love. It's not just about fireworks and memories. It's about respect. And Lana had quietly buried hers in a shallow grave between me and a man she once called a mistake. That grave was about to be dug up. Not because I needed revenge to breathe again, but because I needed to remind her that I wasn't the fool she thought I was. And that whatever fantasy she had about Ethan, about how it might feel to rekindle an old flame, it wouldn't survive the reality I was about to deliver. There's a moment, right before betrayal makes itself visible, where you almost wish you were wrong. That moment came for me on a Thursday night. Lana stood at the door adjusting her necklace. Not a regular one, the sapphire pendant I gave her 5 anniversaries ago. The one she hadn't worn in years. She said it didn't go with anything. But tonight, apparently, it did. Her dress shimmered in a way that caught light from every corner. Hair curled, lips painted a shade darker than usual. She smelled like temptation bottled, Chanel, I think. I bought it for her, ironically, the same day she rejected Ethan's second friend request. "Where are you going again?" I asked without looking up, pretending to type something on my laptop. She paused only for a second, just long enough to signal the lie forming. "Girls' night. You know. Mia, Danny, a few of the others from work. We haven't caught up in months." I nodded slowly, tapping keys that didn't need pressing. "That's great. You look amazing." She smiled. But it wasn't guilt that flashed across her face. It was adrenaline. She was excited. "Don't wait up, okay?" "I won't." She closed the door softly, as if she didn't want the house to remember her absence. I waited exactly 7 minutes after the engine sound faded before I stood and opened the drawer. Inside were 3 things: a flash drive, a burner phone, and a folded slip of paper. I'd been preparing for this. The bartender I hired texted me the address. A bar downtown, discreet but popular among the mid-30s crowd looking to relive their 20s in dim lighting. I didn't rush. I knew exactly how this night would unfold. Still, as I got into my car, I told myself, maybe she really is just with her friends. But then I saw the picture. Sent from the burner phone. A snapshot. Candid. Lana, in that same shimmering dress, standing at the bar. And across from her, Ethan. The ex with the friend requests. The one who meant nothing. The one she wouldn't even recognize now. The one who, according to her, couldn't even spell fidelity. And yet there they were, laughing. Her hand on his wrist. His eyes locked onto her like a dog finally called home. I parked across the street. The bar's windows were high and narrow, but just enough light spilled through that I could make out silhouettes. Every once in a while, her laugh would filter out when the door opened. They were sitting close. Too close. The kind of close that makes the heart feel claustrophobic. I didn't go inside. I didn't need to. Because I already knew. What broke me wasn't the kiss that eventually happened at 11:36 p.m., it was the way she looked at him before it happened. She looked safe. Like she belonged. Like I'd never existed. The kiss was soft. Not rushed. No hesitation. Her hand slid behind his neck like muscle memory. His arms pulled her in without apology. I turned away before it ended. I didn't want to know how long she stayed in his arms. By the time she got home, around 1:15 a.m., I was in bed, pretending to doze. She tiptoed inside, slipped out of her heels like she was 13 sneaking past curfew. The bathroom door clicked shut. I heard the shower start, hot, long. Like she was trying to wash off someone else's fingerprints. She slid into bed with a quiet sigh. Her fingers brushed my arm. "Sorry," she whispered. Mia had too much wine. It took forever to calm her down. I mumbled. She turned to her side, back facing me. I stared at the ceiling. I don't know how long I stayed awake. Maybe hours. Maybe decades. In my mind, I kept looping every conversation we ever had about honesty. Every time she said she hated cheaters. Every time I believed her. I had proof now. Clear, documented, time-stamped. I had every message she'd exchanged with Ethan since they'd reconnected, thank you to the software I quietly installed months ago. I even had a voice memo from the bartender, confirming she paid in cash and asked not to be tagged in any photos. She was careful. Calculated. She had thought this through. And that's when something inside me turned cold, not angry, not broken. Just quiet. I realized this wasn't an accident. This wasn't Lana stumbling into something out of impulse. She planned this. She wanted this. She had chosen to lie. And I was done being the fool in this story. The next morning, she made pancakes. She hummed a tune while flipping them, like she hadn't just detonated a bomb in our marriage the night before. I watched her, sitting in the same chair I always did. Our cat rubbed against my leg. The sunlight made the kitchen look like a painting, warm, idyllic, fake. "Coffee?" she asked. "Sure." She handed me the mug with a smile. I looked her in the eye. She held my gaze. And in that moment, I knew she didn't think I knew. She still believed I was blind. Trusting. Stupid. Good. Let her believe that. Let her keep kissing him in the shadows, thinking she was clever. Let her imagine I was still the same man who cried the first time she said, "I love you." Because when the day came, when the curtain lifted, and the audience stood in stunned silence, she wouldn't be ready. I wasn't going to confront her. I was going to rewrite her ending. And when I was finished, she would wish I had screamed. Because silence leaves a deeper scar. I didn't leave. I didn't scream, slam doors, or pack my bags in the middle of the night like men do in movies. I stayed. I smiled. I held her when she cried. I became the most loving husband in the world. Because revenge, real revenge isn't loud. It's quiet. Slow. It breathes like a living thing, growing, adapting, waiting. And I wanted her to be comfortable. I wanted her to believe she was safe. That she'd gotten away with it. That's when it hurts most, right when they think they've won. I began by rebuilding what we once had, or at least what she thought we had. Morning kisses. Surprise lunch dates. Texts that said, "Thinking of you." I even played the role of the clueless romantic, bringing home her favorite gelato and putting on the same movie we watched on our first anniversary. She was cautious at first, her eyes lingered a little too long, like she expected me to snap. Like she could hear the ticking underneath my smile. But I never cracked. And so slowly, she let her guard down. By the third week, she initiated the affection. Long touches. Lingering hugs. The kind of attention I hadn't gotten from her in years. Funny how guilt makes people affectionate. But guilt doesn't erase betrayal. It just covers it in perfume and pearls. Behind the scenes, I was building my case like a detective with too much time and a bleeding heart. I hired a private investigator. Not a seedy guy in a car with a camera, no. I found someone discreet, ex-FBI, now working freelance. A woman named Marla who specialized in high-profile infidelity cases. She was surgical. Untraceable. She followed Lana for 2 weeks and gathered enough footage to film a documentary on modern cheating. Most nights, Lana did come home to me. But other nights? She parked 3 blocks away, walked to a familiar corner bar, and disappeared through a side entrance where Ethan waited like a dog trained to obey. They weren't subtle. That was the most insulting part. Like they didn't even believe I was capable of suspicion. Like my silence equaled stupidity. They kissed in parking lots. They shared drinks from the same glass. He tucked her hair behind her ear like he owned her. And maybe in some deluded way, he thought he did. But Ethan was just a symptom. She had the disease. While Marla kept track of their movements, I went after something far more delicate. Ethan's career. He worked at a PR firm that represented a few big regional clients, tech startups, a real estate conglomerate, even a hospital network. The firm prided itself on being morally focused, with zero tolerance for anything that could damage client trust. I created an anonymous identity. A former client, concerned about rumors. I called the firm's ethics hotline. Spoke in calm, measured tones. I dropped the right names, posed questions, sowed doubt. Would it be an issue if one of your associates was engaging in a personal relationship with the married spouse of a high-value client? I never said Lana's name. Never said mine. But it didn't take much. Corporate ecosystems are dry fields soaked in gasoline, one spark and it burns. Within a week, Ethan was placed on temporary leave pending internal review. He didn't tell Lana right away. But I knew she'd find out. And when she did, she'd start unraveling. That night, she came home early. Her eyes were glassy. Her hands were trembling. She didn't speak during dinner. Just pushed pasta around her plate and nodded when I asked if she was okay. Later, while folding laundry, I watched her pace back and forth near the bedroom window, phone clutched in her hand. She stared at the screen like it had betrayed her. Then she started typing something furiously, only to delete it and start again. Over and over. Eventually, she gave up and slammed it on the dresser. Something happened? I asked gently. She looked up, startled, like she forgot I was in the room. No, she said, too quickly. Just tired. I nodded. Well. I'm here if you ever want to talk. She softened. I know. You've been really good lately. I feel like I don't deserve you sometimes. You don't. But I smiled and kissed her forehead. I'm not going anywhere. And I meant it, at least not until everything was gone. In the weeks that followed, Lana grew more present. She cooked more. Laughed more. We even had sex again, twice. It was mechanical, but she tried to make it feel real. Her eyes stayed closed the entire time, and I let her pretend. I pretended too. I pretended not to notice that she deleted all her old messages. I pretended not to hear her cry alone in the bathroom after checking her phone and finding no new messages. Ethan had ghosted her. He was under review, and I'd heard through a connection that he was told to stay away from all potential scandals. He chose his job over her. She wouldn't admit it, but I saw it every time she blinked too fast. She was grieving the man she betrayed me for. And I was giving her every comfort she needed, while I sharpened the knife. One night, while she slept, I stood over her with her phone in my hand. Not to snoop, I already knew everything I needed. No, I was programming the final phase. I sent a calendar invite from her account. Vow renewal. Private beach venue. Photographer scheduled. Dinner reservations. She'd think it was her idea. The illusion of a second chance. A fresh start. All she had to do was agree, and sign a simple, marital property update my lawyer drafted weeks ago. A post-nup. Something to show our commitment and protect both of us if anything ever went wrong. She signed it over coffee the next morning. No hesitation. Because she believed she had a clean slate. Because she believed I had forgiven her. And that's the beauty of slow revenge. They never see it coming. A week before the renewal, I saw her curled up on the couch, crying quietly over an old photo of us. It was from Florence, our honeymoon. She traced her fingers over my face like she was mourning a man already dead. I really messed up, didn't I? She whispered. I didn't say anything. I just sat beside her and let her head rest on my shoulder. I don't want to lose you, Adrian, she said. I really don't. You won't, I lied. Because in a way, she already had. The woman in the photo, the one who smiled like I was all she needed, died long before Ethan ever showed up. I just hadn't held the funeral yet. The vow renewal was perfect. The ocean breeze. The gold-dusted sunlight. The little white gazebo. Our closest friends and family gathered. Everyone thought we were healing. They toasted to love, to growth, to forgiveness. She cried as she read her vows. I smiled as I read mine. Because I knew what she didn't. I had all the evidence. I had legal documents that made the house, the savings, and even her boutique, mine. I had friends ready to support me, and her family who would see exactly what she'd done. The final act was coming. And when it did, it wouldn't be explosive. It would be surgical. Elegant. I was going to make her feel the way I did. Not through yelling. Not through violence. But through the cold, quiet humiliation of being known. And that? That was the real betrayal. Not what she did with Ethan. But what she did when she thought I wasn't looking. That's something I'd never forgive. That's what she'd never recover from. And when the world finally saw her the way I did, she'd wish she had accepted that friend request. And kept walking. It didn't happen in an instant. Revenge, the kind that truly settles in your bones, is slow. It creeps up behind your rage, wraps around your heartbreak, and becomes strategy. After I watched her kiss Ethan, I didn't rage. I didn't scream. I made her favorite tea, placed it by her bedside, and kissed her forehead while she slept. She thought she had fooled me. I knew I had fooled her. Over the next few weeks, I transformed into the man she once adored, courteous, romantic, available. I paid attention again. Not because I wanted to win her back. No. That version of Lana, the woman I married, was already gone. What I was doing now was performance art. And I was the lead. She responded exactly as I expected. Guilt softened her. She leaned into me with a kind of desperation I hadn't seen in years. She whispered, "I love you," first. She initiated intimacy like she was trying to wash away the memory of what she'd done. But the scent of betrayal doesn't fade with candlelight. It gets stronger. And so did my resolve. One evening, while she was in the shower, I sat across the table from her untouched phone. I had already cloned it weeks ago, every message, photo, voice memo mirrored onto mine. But I wanted to see it again. Her last message to Ethan was cold. "We can't talk anymore. I love my husband. This has to stop." Cute. She had tried to make a clean break. But it was too late. That's the thing about betrayal, it's not about the action. It's about the choice. The moment someone lets the thought take root. And she had watered it for months. So I moved to phase 2 of my plan. "Let's renew our vows," I said over dinner one night. She looked up from her pasta, stunned. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious," I smiled. "We've been through a lot. I think it's time to start fresh. Clean slate." She teared up. I watched her try to swallow down shame and relief like wine. "I'd love that," she whispered. "Perfect." I suggested a beach ceremony. Small. Classy. Close friends. A fresh start. She offered to plan it all, I let her. Meanwhile, I arranged the real celebration. I contacted my lawyer and had him draft a postnuptial agreement. I spun it with careful language, just so we're both protected. It's not about trust, it's about peace of mind. She signed it without hesitation. That piece of paper became the knife I would twist later. Clause 4. In the event of adultery leading to the dissolution of the marriage, Party B, Lana Reyes, forfeits all rights to joint property, assets, and business holdings. Clause 6. All pre-marriage assets belonging to Party A remain solely in Party A's possession. Clause 7. The business, though co-managed by both parties, is legally owned by Party A and remains untouched by dissolution proceedings. She didn't even read it. She just said, "I trust you." And I smiled. I needed evidence, more than screenshots, more than my gut. That's where Russell came in. He was a private investigator I'd used once before for a plagiarism case at work. This was a bit different. He had everything in under a week. Photos of them meeting. Video of them holding hands. Even audio of them sharing memories in Ethan's car. The cherry on top, a kiss, full on, in a public bar. I wasn't angry when I saw it. I was calm. The kind of calm you reach after surviving a storm and watching the sky finally open. I printed them, logged the timestamps, and arranged them in a timeline that only I could understand. This was no longer about catching her. This was about showing her who she had underestimated. The night of the vow renewal, everything was perfect. We stood barefoot on the sand. Our closest friends gathered in a crescent. The wind played with her hair as she read her vows, and I could almost believe she meant them. But I knew better. I said mine, smiling the entire time. Not at her, but at the ending I had crafted, inch by inch. That night, I told her we'd host a dinner party at home to celebrate, just close friends and family. Casual. Elegant. She agreed. She had no idea she was about to walk into her own confession. The living room buzzed with conversation, laughter, and music. Everyone dressed in white and gold. Lana was radiant, hugging her mother, clinking glasses, smiling like she had redeemed herself. At exactly 8:45 p.m., I tapped my glass and stood. "Everyone," I began, "thank you for being here. Tonight isn't just about Lana and me. It's about the truth. About love, even when it breaks." The room quieted. Lana looked puzzled. I gestured to the TV behind me. "Before we toast to a fresh start, I put together a little something. A journey through our love." She smiled, oblivious. The screen lit up. Photos of us over the years. Italy. Halloween parties. Family barbecues. A few guests chuckled warmly. Then, the tone changed. "Slide, every betrayal begins with a smile." Lana's expression shifted. The next slide showed a screenshot of Ethan's message. "You looked incredible last night. I wish we hadn't stopped." More messages followed. A location tag from the bar. A photo of them holding hands. Then the video. She gasped. Her mother stood up. Her best friend covered her mouth. Lana turned to me, tears pooling. "Adrian." I raised my hand. "No lies tonight." The screen went black. Silence settled. The kind that chokes. Then I walked over and handed her the envelope. She opened it. Divorce papers. Signed. Dated. Then the second envelope. She didn't understand, until she saw the post-nup title. Her face was drained of color. "I trusted you," she whispered. "No," I said softly. "You lied to me. I simply believed you." My lawyer, disguised as a distant cousin at the bar, stood and confirmed the agreement was in motion. Property transfer. Business rights. Account separation. I turned to the room. "I'm not doing this out of spite. I'm doing it because I deserve peace. And because no one, should be made to feel small in their own marriage." I didn't scream. I didn't weep. I told the truth. And then I stepped back, letting her crumble. She ran out. No one followed. Her mother wouldn't even look at her. I stayed behind, poured a drink, and toasted the night sky. Ethan disappeared. Whether from shame or job loss, I didn't care. Lana moved in with her sister. I kept the house. The boutique. My dignity. Some say revenge is best served cold. But I think it's best served with clarity. Not to destroy, but to remind. I never needed to ruin her. I just needed her to see the version of me she buried was the one who would rise from the ashes, reborn, relentless, and unbreakable. It's been 6 months since that night, since the night I told the truth in front of everyone, and Lana's world finally collapsed the way she once threatened to collapse mine. And yet, in the silence that followed the storm, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt clean. I still remember the sound of the door clicking shut behind her. After she ran out of the house, humiliated and sobbing, I just stood there. People whispered, a few friends offered me their awkward sympathies, others simply left without looking me in the eye. No one congratulated me, and I didn't expect them to. Revenge isn't something people applaud out loud. But deep down, they understood. She cheated. I showed them. Now we move on. The house is quiet now. Peaceful, even. I replaced the photos, painted the living room a cool slate blue, and changed the locks, not just on the doors, but in my head, too. I no longer check her social media. I don't ask about her through mutual friends. I don't wonder where she goes, who she's with, or whether she still thinks of me. That part of me, obsessed, anxious, afraid, is gone. But healing isn't linear. Some days are heavier than others. There are nights I wake up from dreams where we're still happy. In those dreams, she laughs without guilt, holds me without distance, and tells me I'm enough. And then I wake up and remember, she chose someone else. She made that choice again and again, until I made mine. I chose myself. I've gone back to writing again. Not just editing someone else's words, but finally putting down my own. It's strange how pain can sharpen your voice. I published 3 short stories in the last 2 months, each loosely inspired by real things I once lived through. Betrayal. Disappointment. But also a quiet victory. Reflection. Forgiveness, not of her, but of myself. The last story was titled The Fifth Decline. It was about a man who notices his wife pausing every time she declines her ex's friend request. In the end, he doesn't stop her from cheating, he just watches her dig her own grave, one click at a time. My editor loved it. Said it felt real. Because it was. I now spend most mornings at a little bookstore cafe downtown. No one knows me here. I sip my coffee, outline my drafts, and let the white noise of turning pages and soft jazz fill the space where Heartbreak used to live. One afternoon, I noticed a woman sitting at the next table. She was reading a paperback copy of The Fifth Decline. My book. She didn't recognize me, but I recognized the furrow of concentration on her brow, the way her eyes slowed when they reached the final paragraph. She closed the book, exhaled deeply, and whispered to herself, "Damn. He really let her hang herself." I smiled before I could stop myself. She caught it. "Did you read this one?" "I wrote it," I said, shrugging. Her eyes widened. "No way. You're Adrian Reyes." Guilty. I loved it. Especially the restraint. The way he didn't scream or lash out. He just stepped back and watched it burn. Sometimes, silence says more than screaming ever could. She nodded slowly. Then she extended her hand. "I'm Marin. It's nice to meet you." And just like that, something shifted. No sparks. No fireworks. Just warmth. A conversation that didn't feel like a performance. A connection that didn't ask me to bleed just to feel real. We've shared a few coffees since then. Nothing more. I'm not rushing into anything. I'm not chasing up next. I'm just breathing again. For the first time in a long while, it feels like I'm living for me, not for validation, not for approval, not for someone who already had one foot out the door. And as I sit here, fingers on the keyboard, I wonder what story I'll write next. Not every story needs betrayal. Not every arc needs revenge. But every tale does need truth. And here's mine. She lied. I listened. She left. I let her. Now I'm here. Still writing. Still healing. And somewhere out there. She's still wondering how I knew. Maybe one day I'll write that part, too. But not today. Today, I just want to see where this quiet, steady life takes me. Because revenge was never the end, it was the beginning of something better.